And good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning to you. Hope you've had a good beginning to this week. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. I've only had one cup of coffee this morning, so hey. Anyway, I appreciate you being with me here on Morning Musings. We are taking a look at the eschatology of the parables of Jesus. I have shared with you Jesus' teaching on eschatology in the parables falsifies any futurist view of eschatology. Luke chapter 19 is a classic example of that, as I've been sharing with you. Now, I hinted and I suggested in the previous installment that Luke chapter 19 and the motif of the absent master is incredibly important in understanding biblical eschatology. Jesus said, in regard and in response to the common thinking at the moment, at that critical time, the Jews believed that he was going to go to Jerusalem and there establish the kingdom immediately. Jesus wanted them to realize he had to go away, go back to the Father, there receive the kingdom, and then return. Now, as I've already shared with you, this is just absolutely devastating to the dispensational view, to the amillennial and the postmillennial views when properly understood. Okay, now watch this. Jesus said a certain nobleman went into a far country there to receive the kingdom. This motif of Jesus departing, what I call the absent master, is absolutely critical. How often during his public ministry did Jesus warn his disciples that he had to die, be buried, but be raised again, and go back to the Father to receive the kingdom, and then come again in judgment and in the glory of the Father? His resurrection declaring him to be the Son of God with power according to the Spirit of holiness, Romans 1 verse 4. And thus, being identified now with God, as God, he would manifest himself not as a 5'5" Jewish man, but he would come in the glory of the Father, as the Father had come. But this absent master motif is critical to understand. Now remember, the Jews thought he was going to go to Jerusalem right then, right there, and receive the kingdom. He said, no, I have to go to a far country there to receive the kingdom. Notice how many times Jesus referred to the necessity and to the reality of the fact that he was going away to come again in judgment of the kingdom. Matthew chapter 25, verse 14 and following. A certain man was getting ready to go on a far journey, on a long journey. Reckon that's the far country of Luke 19? Gathered his servants around him, divided the talents among them, and said, take care of this until I come again. Now I'm paraphrasing, obviously. In John chapters 14 through 16, Jesus said over and over again, in my Father's house are many dwelling places. I'm going away. If I go away, I'll come again. I mean, in one verse, you have two goings away and one coming. And he told his disciples, and look, there's so many references in John 14 to 16, don't have time to get all of them almost. But in John 16, he said, it is expedient for you that I go away. I go away. If I do not go away, the Comforter, Holy Spirit, cannot come. Okay, now watch this. With all of these references, and we barely touched the hem of the garment, with all of these references to Jesus going away, and in many of these cases, the purpose of the going away is the kingdom, because For instance, in Matthew 25, the kingdom of heaven is like. Just like in Mark 13, 32 through 35. But of that day and hour knows no man, no, not the angels, not even the Son, but the Father only. But it is like a certain man who went into a far country, but who gave his goods to his servants and said, occupy until I come. That's Luke chapter 19. But watch this. In Mark chapter 13, Jesus said his coming, after he had gone to the Father, would be in his generation. In John 14 to 16, Jesus was speaking to his living, breathing apostles and said, if I go, I'll come back to you. Now watch this. Catch the power of this. When did Jesus depart? When did Jesus go to the far country? Acts chapter 1. In that famous passage in which Jesus ascended, and the angel told to the disciples, this same Jesus, whom you have seen taken from you, he departed. Where'd he go? To the far country. Why was he going there? Well, Acts chapter 2 tells us he went there and he sat down at the right hand of the majesty on high on the throne of David. He received the kingdom. Acts 1 is Jesus going to a far country of Luke 19. Acts chapter 1 says Jesus would come. When would he come? Well, Luke 19 says he would come in judgment of those who said, we will not have this man rule over us. That's Old Covenant Jerusalem and Judah. In Acts chapter 2, after saying Jesus had gone into the far country and had sat down at the right hand of the majesty, Peter warned his audience, save yourselves from this untoward generation. Do you see this marvelous unity and harmony? All of these passages about going away to receive a kingdom. And don't forget the power of Acts chapter 2. He went away, he sat down on the throne, David's throne. He received the kingdom. He was coming again in that generation. All of these going away passages must be viewed within the context of all of these statements that Acts chapter 2, this generation, Mark 13, this generation, Luke chapter 19. He's coming again. He's coming in judgment of those who rejected his reign and his kingdom. Look, this motif of the absent master is one of the keys to understanding Acts chapter 1. Are we supposed to think Jesus went away several times? Well, if he didn't go away several times, then he wasn't coming back several times. There is only one, biblically, there's only one return after the going away. Jesus never said, I'm going to come again and again and again and again. You need to get a copy of the 15 DVD lessons on Acts chapter 1. Go to my website, eschatology.org or bibleprophecy.com. Order this set on Acts 1:11 in like manner. You know, I hear from a lot of you say, Don, I'd really like to support your ministry. Here's a way to do it. And it will benefit you in understanding the motif set forth by Jesus in the parables of the absent master, demonstrating that the return was to be in AD 70. Thanks so much for joining me for this morning's morning musings. We will see you on the flip side.